The late afternoon sun, already softening to a buttery yellow, slanted through the dusty windshield of my work van, illuminating the floating motes of sawdust that always seemed to cling to the air inside. Another day, another leaky faucet. My hands, calloused and familiar with the weight of wrenches and the grittiness of old pipes, gripped the steering wheel. I was Jake, a handyman by trade, a quiet observer by nature. My life was a predictable rhythm of calls, fixes, and the occasional hum of a radio in a silent house. This next address, 142 Willow Creek Lane, promised nothing different. Just another house, another job. The neighborhood was the kind of quiet that felt almost staged, manicured lawns stretching out like green carpets, identical mailboxes standing guard. I parked the van, the engine thrumming to a halt, and grabbed my toolbox. The house was a modest two-story, painted a cheerful pale blue, with a riot of petunias spilling from window boxes. I walked up the flagstone path, the gravel crunching under my boots, and pressed the doorbell. A soft ding-dong echoed inside. A moment passed. Then the door creaked open. My eyes, accustomed to assessing the structural integrity of homes, landed on her. She stood there, dripping wet, a bright pink towel wrapped precariously around her, barely covering anything. Water slicked her skin, catching the light, and her dark hair, plastered to her forehead, looked like she'd just emerged from a waterfall. My professional facade, usually impenetrable, wavered. "Oh my God, I am so sorry," she blurted, her voice a rapid-fire apology, her cheeks flushing a deep crimson. The shower just exploded practically. I mean, not exploded, but it's more like a geyser. A very inconvenient, very wet geyser. She wrung her hands, droplets flying. Her eyes, wide and a startling shade of green, darted around, as if searching for an escape route from her own embarrassment. She looked like a hurricane had just passed through her bathroom, and she was the only survivor, wrapped in a flag of surrender. My lips, usually set in a neutral line, twitched. I felt a slow, unfamiliar smile tug at the corners. Mrs. Chaos in a towel, indeed. No worries. I managed, my voice a little rougher than usual. Just tell me where the geyser is. She laughed, a short, breathless huh. That was more like a gasp of relief. Right this way. Please try not to look at the general disaster. She gestured vaguely behind her, then scuttled inside, her bare feet making soft slap-slap sounds on the wooden floor. I followed, trying not to stare at the back of her towel, which seemed to cling for dear life. The house was surprisingly neat, despite her claims, smelling faintly of citrus and damp fabric. The bathroom was, as promised, a disaster zone. Water pooled on the tiled floor, reflecting the harsh overhead light, and a steady drip, drip, drip echoed from the sink faucet. "It's the sink, too," she explained, pointing a trembling finger. "I think the shower pressure blew something out. It's been acting up for weeks, but I kept putting it off. Classic me." She sighed dramatically. "I'm Nina, by the way." "Jake," I replied, already setting my toolbox down. "Let's take a look." I knelt by the sink, assessing the damage. The pipe was definitely leaking, a slow, insistent plink-plink into a small puddle. I'd seen worse. Much worse. As I worked, the silence was broken only by the occasional clink of my tools and the persistent dripping. "Can I get you anything?" Nina asked, her voice a little calmer now, but still laced with a nervous energy. "Water? Coffee? I'll make a decent cup, if I do say so myself." I usually declined, preferring to focus. But something in her voice, that hopeful tone, made me pause. "Coffee would be great, thanks." "Excellent," she chirped, and I heard her patter-patter out of the bathroom. A few minutes later, she reappeared, now dressed in a pair of faded jeans and a soft gray t-shirt. She carried 2 steaming mugs. A large, fluffy ginger cat, with a tail that looked like a bottle brush, wound its way around her ankles, mewing softly. "This is Marmalade," she announced, holding out a mug. "He's the true boss around here." I took the mug. It was warm and comforting. "Nice to meet you, Marmalade." The cat blinked slowly, then rubbed against my leg, purring a low VRRMM against my ankle. "So, Jake the handyman, Nina said, leaning against the doorframe, sipping her coffee. Is this your dream job? Fixing other people's plumbing disasters. I chuckled. It's honest work, and it keeps me busy. I can imagine, she said, her green eyes crinkling at the corners. I'm a graphic designer, so my disasters are usually less watery. More client wants a rainbow unicorn on their corporate logo kind of disasters. Sounds colorful. Oh, you have no idea, she groaned, then laughed, a light, airy sound that somehow filled the small bathroom. So, are you from around here? I haven't seen your van before. Moved here a few years ago. From out of state. Ah, a man of mystery, she teased, a mischievous glint in her eyes. I like it. We talked as I worked, the conversation flowing surprisingly easily. She was clumsy and endearing and had a way of making even the most mundane topics sound interesting. She told me about her attempts at gardening, which usually ended in a plant massacre, and her love for terrible B-movies. I found myself opening up, talking about my old hometown and the satisfaction of a job well done. The coffee was good, strong, and black, just how I liked it. The cat, Marmalade, had settled on my toolbox, watching my every move with an almost scientific curiosity. Finally, with a final clunk of the wrench, I tightened the last connection. All done. No more geyser. No more drip. You're a miracle worker, Nina exclaimed, her face lighting up. Seriously, thank you. You saved my bathroom and probably my sanity. She paid me, her fingers brushing mine as she handed over the cash. A small spark, unexpected, passed between us. I packed up my tools, the familiar weight of them a comfort. Well, Jake, she said, walking me to the door. It was eventful. Thanks again. Any time, I said, and for the first time, I meant it in a way that went beyond professional courtesy. I drove away, the image of her standing in the doorway, her green eyes still bright, imprinted in my mind. Her laugh, that light, airy sound, echoed in the quiet of the van. I'd fixed countless leaks and replaced dozens of broken appliances, but Nina, she lingered, longer than any other client, a name I didn't forget. A month later, the call came. My phone buzzed, and I saw the familiar number pop up. Nina, a small, involuntary smile, touched my lips. Jake, you are not going to believe this, she began, her voice a frantic whisper. But my washing machine just decided to stage a protest. It's making this gurgle splutter thump sound, and I'm pretty sure it's trying to escape through the wall. I chuckled. Sound like a fun one. It's fate, I tell you, she declared. First the sink, now the washing machine. Clearly, the universe wants us to keep running into each other, probably over a new appliance crisis every month. I'm on my way, I said, and I wasn't arguing with fate. Life, in the interim, had been normal. I'd dated casually, a few dinners, some polite conversation, but nothing stuck. The women I met were perfectly nice, but there was no spark, no chaos, no bright green eyes that made me want to smile. Nina, I knew from our brief chats, was also dating. She'd mentioned a few guys, always with a sigh or an eye roll. They all annoy me after 2 weeks, she confessed during one of my visits. It's like they have an internal clock that starts ticking and then ding. Annoyance complete. We both denied we were lonely. We were busy. We had lives. We just happened to keep calling each other for plumbing emergencies. The washing machine was indeed putting on a performance. It clanked and groaned, vibrating across the laundry room floor with a will of its own. Nina watched, hands on her hips, a look of exasperated amusement on her face. I swear it's possessed, she muttered. I got to work, my movements fluid and practiced. Nina sat on a laundry basket, chatting about her latest design project, a series of whimsical illustrations for a children's book. Her energy was infectious, and I found myself talking more and laughing more easily. You know, she said, her voice softer, it's nice having you around, even if it means something is broken. I aim to please, I replied, a smirk playing on my lips. You do, she agreed, her eyes meeting mine, and for a beat, the air in the laundry room seemed to thicken, charged with something unspoken. The washing machine gave a final, protesting thump then settled into a quiet hum. "Fixed," I announced, breaking the spell. "You're magic," she whispered, her gaze still on me. One night, months later, a storm rolled in. The sky had been a bruised purple all day, and by evening, the rain was coming down in sheets, a relentless drum against the roof. I was already winding down for the night, the comfortable quiet of my apartment settling around me, when my phone rang. "Nina." "Jake, oh my God, the power just went out." Her voice was tight with panic. "And the storm's getting worse. I can hear the wind howling. Are you okay?" I asked, a sudden jolt of concern going through me. "I'm fine, I think. Just alone. And it's really dark. And marmalade just knocked over a lamp. Can you? I don't know. Can you just be here?" It was a strange request. Not a repair. Just a presence. But I didn't hesitate. "I'm on my way." The drive was treacherous. Rain lashed against the windshield, blurring the streetlights into hazy halos. Branches, heavy with water, swayed precariously. I pulled up to her house, the familiar pale blue swallowed by the gloom. Her porch light was out, the house a dark silhouette against the stormy sky. I grabbed my flashlight and hurried to the door. She opened it almost immediately, a small, flickering candle in her hand, casting dancing shadows on her face. Her eyes were wide, a little fearful. "You came," she breathed, relief flooding her voice. "Of course." I stepped inside, shaking the rain from my jacket. The house was cold, but the candlelight lent it an unexpected warmth. Marmalade, a shadow in the dim light, wound around my legs, purring like a tiny motor. "I found some old candles," she said, gesturing to a few more scattered around the living room. "And a deck of cards. Want to play a game? Or just talk? Talk sound good." We sat on our living room rug, the candles casting a soft glow on our faces. The storm raged outside, the wind whistling through the eaves, the rain pounding the windows. But inside, it was quiet and intimate. We talked for hours, about our families, our hopes, and our fears. She told me about a dream she'd had of opening a small, quirky stationery shop. I told her about my quiet ambition to build a small cabin by a lake someday. We talked about past heartbreaks, the scars they left, and the lessons they taught. "I always put up walls," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "It's easier to push people away before they can hurt you. Or leave you." "I get that." I said, "My own walls built high and sturdy over the years. It's safe, but lonely," she finished, her eyes meeting mine across the flickering candlelight. A moment. The air was thick with unspoken words, with a weight of shared vulnerability. My hand, resting on the rug between us, was inches from hers. I felt an almost magnetic pull, a gentle line begging to be crossed. My eyes lingered on her lips, soft and slightly parted. I almost leaned in. She almost let me. But neither of us moved. The storm outside seemed to hold its breath. Then a tree branch crashed somewhere nearby, and the moment shattered. We both flinched, pulling back slightly. The spell was broken. For now. The next time, she started it. It was a sunny Tuesday, weeks later. I was there to fix a clogged drain, a relatively minor job. We were in her kitchen, the air bright and cheerful. I just finished wiping my hands on a rag. "Thanks, Jake," she said, her voice soft. She was standing closer than usual, her green eyes fixed on mine. A small, hesitant smile played on her lips. "No problem, Nina." Then she leaned in, slowly. Her lips, soft and warm, touched mine. It was a feather-light touch at first, a question. I froze, my mind suddenly blank. My hands, still holding the rag, felt clumsy. Then a warmth spread through me, like sun on cold skin. I dropped the rag. My hands, no longer clumsy, found her waist, pulling her gently closer. My lips responded, slowly at first, then with a growing certainty. It wasn't a fling. It wasn't a casual kiss. It felt like coming home, like finding a missing piece I hadn't known I was looking for. We started seeing each other more. Not dating, not in the traditional sense. Just orbiting. Friends who kissed. Friends who held hands. Friends who spent quiet evenings talking by candlelight, even when the power was on. I fixed her leaky faucet, her sputtering washing machine, and her creaky door. She baked me absurdly delicious cookies, taught me how to identify constellations, and made me laugh until my stomach hurt. It was messy. It was beautiful. One afternoon, after a particularly intense session of trying to assemble a flat-pack bookshelf that seemed determined to defy gravity, she pulled away. Her eyes, usually so bright, were clouded with a familiar fear. "Jake," she said, her voice tight, I can't do serious right now." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "This us. It's getting too real. And I'm scared. I'm just not ready for anything serious." "I'm sorry." She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her walls were back up, higher and thicker than ever. My heart, which had been slowly, cautiously opening, felt a sharp pang. Hurt, but understanding, I backed off. "Okay," I said, my voice flat. "I get it." I left, the silence in my van louder than any storm. Months passed. No calls. No texts. The familiar number remained in my phone, a silent accusation. I heard through the grapevine she was dating someone else, a clean-cut guy who worked in finance. I went quiet. My life resumed its predictable rhythm of calls and fixes, but the hum of the radio in my van felt emptier. The houses I worked in seemed colder, the silence heavier. Nothing felt right. The coffee tasted bland. The jokes fell flat. I missed her chaos, her laughter, and the way she made even a broken washing machine seem like an adventure. I missed the quiet intimacy of talking by candlelight. I missed the way her lips felt against mine. Then, one rainy Tuesday, my doorbell rang. Not my phone. My doorbell. I opened it, my heart hammering against my ribs. She stood there, a small umbrella in her hand, her hair damp around her face. She wasn't in a towel. She wasn't in distress. She was just there. "Hi," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the pitter-patter of the rain. Her green eyes were nervous, vulnerable. "Hi," I replied, my voice a little rough. I was cautious. My walls, recently reinforced, were still standing. Can I come in?" I stepped aside, opening the door wider. She walked in, closing her umbrella with a soft click. The air between us was thick with unspoken words, with months of silence and longing. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I was scared. I pushed you away, and it was the biggest mistake I ever made." She looked up, her eyes pleading. "I miss you, Jake. I miss us." My walls, so carefully constructed, began to crumble. "I miss you too, Nina. We talked about everything." Her fear of commitment is rooted in old hurts. My patience, my quiet waiting, my stubborn refusal to give up on her, even when she'd push me away. The way I'd always waited until she was ready. It was messy. It was honest. It was real. We talked until the rain stopped and the sun broke through the clouds, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. 3 years later, I stood at her front door. The same front door, the same house, but it felt different now. Transformed. My heart, once a quiet, predictable drum, now thumped with a joyful rhythm. She opened the door. This time, she wasn't in a towel. She was in white satin, a veil cascading around her face, her green eyes sparkling with happy tears. She was breathtaking. "Ready, Mrs. Miller?" I asked, a wide grin stretching across my face. She laughed, a joyous, unrestrained sound that filled the air. "Ready, Mr. Miller." I swept her into my arms, the soft fabric of her dress rustling against my suit. She gasped, then giggled, her arms wrapping around my neck. I carried her over the threshold into the house that had once been just another job, just another address. The house where love had snuck in through the back door, quietly, persistently, when no one was looking. The house that was now her home.